Hello there, and welcome to Let's Play Mickey's Speedway USA. 4-bit. This game was developed by Rareware and released for the Nintendo 64 in 2000. There was also a version for the Game Boy Color in 2001. Now, this game is a racing game, so therefore doing a regular Let's Play of this would be kind of stupid. So we'll do something different. We're just going to look over the game a little bit and show off what it has in store. First off, this opening screen is pretty interesting because it actually doesn't do anything. It's just one extra step in between getting to the actual game and the main menu. And apparently this screen was supposed to be animated, but they cut it because of time or whatever. It's not really clear. Now, as for the characters, you have your standard racing setup. You've got the characters that are balanced, Mickey and Donald. You've got the characters that accelerate fast and handle well but aren't really that quick. So that'll be Daisy and Minnie. And then you have the characters that don't accelerate, can't handle well, but go really fast. That would be Goofy and Pete. We're going to be going with Donald because well-balanced characters are usually the easiest way to get a rough handle on the game, and because Donald is fucking awesome. And as for what we'll be doing, we'll be going through the second cup of this game, Motorway Mania, on the intermediate difficulty. This is sort of a middle ground in between the really easy stuff and the really, really fucking hard stuff that comes at the end. Now, as for the story of this game, and yes, there is a story in this game for some reason or another, the gist of it, or rather the entire story, is that Pluto has a collar with diamonds in it. Now, why one would do that is a mystery to me because it would always attract thieves, and, well, exactly that is what happens here. The Weasels steal Pluto. Why they don't just steal the collar is a mystery to me. And Mickey phones up his friends to help them chase after the Weasels. To do that, they go to Ludwig von Drake and get racing cars. That's about as far as it goes. Now, this game is a very basic racing game, much in line with Mario Kart 64, and in fact we're going to see that it takes a lot of cues from Mario Kart 64. However, it also takes a few cues from Super Mario Kart, which isn't much of a point in its favor. You see, these coins are all laying around on the track, and the more coins you collect, the faster you go. Up to a maximum of 20 coins. After that, every coin you collect is not going to do anything anymore. Now, you've already seen the first weapon in the game used, and that's the paint splotcher. And the paint splotcher is basically the banana peel from Mario Kart 64. That's basically it. You can throw it forwards, you can throw it backwards, and people slip on it. The next weapon is the Tracer Chaser, and it's basically the red shell from Mario Kart. You fire it, and it chases after the closest guy. And it has a few problems with its finding every once in a while, as you'll see later. The weapon design in general is rather inspired by Mario Kart 64, with only like 1 or 2 weapons that are actually not complete rip-offs of weapons used in Mario Kart 64. But we'll see more of those later. For now, this race is pretty much over, and you can tell that there wasn't that much of a challenge. Now, that will change further on. The way this game works is that it likes to give you its challenge in very, very short bursts, and then just blows all over itself in the last act. There's 3 cups in this game, and after you've won every one of those cups, a 4th cup opens up, and after you then find 4 hidden vehicle parts on these 4 cups, then you get the final 5th cup, which is just crazy fucking hard. But we'll get to that later. First off, the Weasels are apparently not really smart. See, they're sending you postcards from wherever they're at, as if they really want you to follow them. And as you can tell, they still have Pluto with them, and they still have made no attempt to remove the collar. So I'm not really sure what their deal is. But sure enough, next track is going to be Alaska. Now, a bit of a spoiler alert, I'm going to completely dominate this race, so I'm going to be talking a bit about the weaknesses of this game's design. Now, when you play this game, you should do it its way. If you don't do it its way, you're going to be landing in a lot of pain. And I didn't play it its way. I chose Donald, which is a suboptimal character for this game. In fact, there are two optimal characters for this game, and they are Minnie and Daisy, because in this game, handling is paramount. And with those characters, you win the amateur races, and after you win the amateur races, you unlock one of the triplets. Exactly the same as Minnie and Daisy, but better. And with him, you then beat the intermediate races. After you meet the intermediate races, you then unlock another one of the triplets, who is even better. And with them, you then win the hard races, and that's basically it. But if you don't use these good characters, then you're going to be left behind in the dust. See, these tracks are not indicative of the later Cup's difficulty. When the difficulty really starts to ramp up, handling is really, really, really important. Everything else you can basically forget about. So, if you don't have the best handling available, then you're going to be having a lot of difficulty, because the AI does not need handling, it just basically makes nearly perfect turns every time. Add to that the near constant rubber banding that goes on in the later levels, and you've got a recipe for disaster. But for now, we're not going to have that many problems, although there's going to be one that shows up in this track. You see, there are different kinds of characters. We already went over this, and there are the fast ones, like Goofy and Pete. Now, as a player, you do not want to choose these two because, like I just said, handling is the most important part of all, and these characters have terrible handling. But the AI that doesn't need to bother itself with those problems, it can basically just consistently run away with the race if you happen to let a fast character in front, which I just did here. So now you're going to see Pete just get the fuck out of here and basically not care about the rest of the race because he's gone and he's going to win this. And the problem with the weapons is that they're ill-equipped to allow a comeback. The best chance you have is to get the Protecto Disc, which is a star equivalent, but you're only ever going to get those when you're on 6th place. And the closest thing you're going to get in 3rd place, 2nd place, where you're going to be, is baseballs and paint splatchers, and they're not going to help you at all. All they're going to do is, at best, help you get back into 2nd place if you dropped, like I just did here. But meanwhile, Pete is just way out in front. The Chase Tracer is just going to run into the ground because that's the straight way. And what I would need would be the Magno Flyer, which is a better red shell, basically. It actually tracks the enemy down and chases it. But you're only ever going to get that if you're like 4th place or worse. And as you just saw, the Trace Chaser has its own share of problems in general, in that sometimes when the character is too close, it just circles around it and goes God knows where into the wall. So now I'm going to get the Spritzer, which is a mushroom basically, and it's going to get me a little bit further forward, but still Pete, thanks to superior top speed, is just going to dominate in the same way that I did the Alaska race, which is sort of a weird thing with this game's AI. Sometimes it's really, really tough and dominates the race. Sometimes it just doesn't show up to play for some reason. And sometimes just one character seems to show up and everybody else just kind of hangs back. And we're going to be seeing that in the next race. The problem that ensues then is that on the harder difficulties, the AI always shows up to play and will always attempt to dominate. And you're only going to be able to beat it by playing a very specific style. Like I just said, the game expects you to play its way, not your way. Now, this is the last track of this course, and it's once again rather bland. The track design in this game is not exactly stellar. The only way the track design actually excels in the later courses is by pissing you the fuck off. And as you can tell here, Mickey is hanging on with me, but the rest of the gang is just hanging back and racing on their own. So it's basically a two-man race in the front and a four-man race in the back. I'm not sure what brings the AI to do this, it's actually kind of weird. Speaking of AI shenanigans, let's talk a little bit more about what this game expects from you. This game expects from you to win every single race, period. It really is as simple as that. And in the later difficulties, this becomes quite the endeavor, in fact. Basically, there's 4 ways you can win a cup. You can win in 3rd place and get bronze, you can win 2nd place and get silver, you can win 1st place and get gold, or you can win every single race and get platinum. And getting platinum on professional difficulty is basically the benchmark the game sets and expects you to reach. And one quick item note, the thing you just saw was the rain cloud. And the rain cloud is a pretty peculiar item. It slows down everybody except the user. Now, this sounds like it should be something you don't like, but on the later difficulties, and in particular the final Fuck You Cup, this can actually quite come in handy. But I will be dedicating an entire video to the Fuck You Cup in particular, so we'll get into that a little bit later. So let's lay off the bile for a second, and let's talk about the things this game does well. First of all, while the track design is rather lackluster, the scenery is actually very nice and varied. You get a lot of nice things going on, and they tried pretty much to make everything look like the place it was based on, so thumbs up to that. And the game music and general audio design is also very good. You've got a lot of chatter going on between the racers, and the music in general is well composed and it's got a nice sound, so that's also very well done. Now here, the game just outright tells you that you're basically not going anywhere unless you win on professional, which basically sets the tone. But once again, that will wait until the next video. As you can see here, we're going to have another one of these standard racing game trophy scenes, which once again is very much taken out of the Mario Kart 64 playbook. And yes, it's pretty bog standard. There's really not a lot to say about this one, so enjoy the dead air, I guess. Now, with that done, let's move on to the secondary modes. First of all, time trial. Time trial is, once again, fairly standard. You get a list of tracks, you pick your track, and then you get to race on it, and your best time gets recorded. And there's staff ghosts you can beat, and if you beat them all, you get a picture of Professor Von Drake on the TV in the beginning. I don't get it. Now, next up is practice mode, and this little slot car game you can actually play with 2 players. I couldn't quite figure out how to do it, so let's just skip on to the actual practice mode, which is really fucking weird. I mean, it's just an empty track where you can drive along, and that's about it. There is one little thing that is important about this, in that you can unlock another track for time trial if you figure out that you have to head to the farm and then run over the eggs that are laid by the chickens. And you figure out that you have to run over 20 of them. I really don't understand what the point of that is, but it seems to fit in rather well with the entire rest of this practice area being entirely pointless, so I guess there's full parts for that. And there's a theory going around that this track was supposed to be a battle track, but was axed during development, or they couldn't get it finished right, or it didn't fit in correctly, and instead of wasting the finished track, they made this practice mode out of it. I mean, I guess that's better than nothing, but still, it's pretty weird, especially when you have the time trial where you can just go there and practice racing. So let's get out of this place. And let's head on to something kind of interesting, the contest mode. It's not really a contest, it's just the battle mode. And you get 4 tracks, all of which are very crappily designed. There's nothing fun like the block fort from Mario Kart 64 here. And it's the exact same setup as Mario Kart 64. 3 balloons, and you race around, you get weapons, and you try to kill the other guys. So there's really not much to this as well, especially since the arenas are fairly small and the whole thing is rather tricky. In general, the weapons in this game lend themselves to a race rather than this arena style, especially weapons like this, the Protect Disc. It just makes you go faster, basically like the Star, invincible, you can bump into people and will take a life away, but if you actually try to pursue somebody, you're going to have to do a curve at some point. And when you have to do a curve while going really, really fast, you're going to have to brake. And if you brake, then everything goes to shit. So it's really not that fun. As you can see here, the most success I have with this Protect Disc is basically coming from complete luck. I just bump into people while I just happen to be invincible, and there we go, I win. It's not really well designed, and I don't even think it would be that fun with friends, especially when you really could just pop in Mario Kart with a much better battle mode. And basically that's it for the battle mode. I mean, game keeps track of score and it keeps track of positions for those that care, but otherwise it's just really bland. And that's it as far as the game goes. That are all the things you can do there. So let's give a little recap. So to sum up, the game could have profited from not taking so many cues from Mario Kart 64. The weapon design in particular suffers a lot, and it just results in really bland weapons that end up being pretty ineffectual. The game should have probably made a lot of more use of its Disney license instead of doing this cross-country USA road trip thing they've got going on. The game has the problem that it has a right way to play it and plenty of wrong ways to play it. If you don't play it the right way, it leads to pain. And the big problem is that even if you do play it the right way, it leads to pain anyway. The game isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's very bland and very forgettable. And it might be fun for those that like a game that takes off the training wheels from the bicycle and leaves you with a unicycle. But more on that in the next part. See you then!